Welcome to the Bloomington Rotary Club's weekly celebration of service for March 9th, 2021. I'm your current president, Ashley Wesley. Thank you so much for being here. Natalie, please show the flag graphic for 15 seconds of respectful silence. We ask that you remain on mute and take this time to personally reflect. Thank you. Now I'd like to introduce Glenda Murray, who will be offering our reflection. Glenda?
Hi, everybody. Last week, Ashley talked about the person who rescued Tiger Woods and how her family, the rescuer, was connected to Bloomington and to the Bloomington Rotary. And I decided I wanted to follow up on some more of those connections. Many of you have heard me talk about my father, who was a Rotarian from 1951 for about 50 years and active all of those years. So I grew up reading the Rotarian magazine at home, or at least looking at the interesting articles or pictures. And it's now called The Rotary. The March issue has an article about the invisible links that bind us together. That part, but look at this graphic, how we're all connected. And I think of it not as invisible links, but as the 6 degrees of separation or whatever you want, how many ever degrees you want to talk about. But not only did I read The Rotarian as a youth, I read Good Housekeeping, which was Mother's Magazine, of course. Imagine my delight this month when I looked at the editor's page, which she titled Simple Pleasures in the Everyday. And what she was talking about was a friend recently gave me a little book called The Book of Delights, in which author Ross Gay details joyful moments that pop up in daily life. Do you remember when he talked to our club and he talked about carrying the tomato seedling onto the airplane and how it made, yes, that book right there that Sally has, and how it made people smile at him and give him nice comments? Well, the editor-in-chief of Good Housekeeping just told the same story from Gay's book to everybody who reads her column in the magazine. Back at home, Tom Rosnowski spoke to us about creating radio programs and using clips from Dick Bishop's old WFIU program. Made many of us have nostalgic good memories. Thanks to Judy Schroeder's good memory, she and I looked it up, and Dick was a member of our club for most of the 1980s. So a connection there. And today, one of our guests is Catherine Swanson, Tina Swanson's sister. Their mother and Patrick's mother were very good friends all those years they lived in Muncie together before the parent Swansons moved to Bloomington. So that was a connection that just popped up today in our breakout room. And I do want to talk about one other connection. I want to close with a moment in memory and honor of Kamisha Sims, the daughter of Jim and Doris Sims, who died February 24th. Doris and I worked together at City Hall when I first moved here in 1984. Kamisha was almost a teenager and Jimmy was younger. We talked about the kids and I saw them occasionally. I even saw Jim occasionally at various events. Doris and Jim were so proud of Kamisha when she became a nurse, not just because she was a nurse, but because she was such a wonderful human being. So I just wanted to say I was proud to know her, and I extend my sympathy to Doris and Jim for her loss. And thank you all for listening.
Thank you, Glenda. We have a few guests with us today. As Glenda mentioned, Tina Swanson's sister, Catherine, is joining us. Thank you for being here. And I see Lynn Coyne is joining us and Larry Allen. We're so glad to have you here. Dave Meyer, would you like to introduce your guest?
Yes, I'd like to introduce Alan Edmonds, who is a returning guest. Thank you.
Welcome, Alan. Thank you for joining us today. It's going to be a wonderful program. Really looking forward to it. And thanks to our producers, Natalie Blaze, Michael Shermis, Sally Gaskell, and Aaron Davis. And our roundabout reporter for this week is Sarah Laughlin. We have one birthday, Rex Hillary, on Saturday, I believe, March 13th. And membership anniversaries, Liz Feidel, 17 years, and Jim Capshew, 3 years. Thank you so much for being a part of the Rotary family. Dave Meyer, I'm going to call you up once again for an announcement.
Thank you, President Ashley. I have the privilege of, on behalf of the club, of announcing that we have a returning member to the Bloomington Rotary Club. That is John Vanderzee. Hi, John. I see him online. He's rejoining the club effective actually last week, but he's with us today. Thank you, John. Welcome.
Thanks very much. It's great to be back.
So glad to have you. And soon enough, we'll see you in person once again. I have one announcement. Jody Hoagland, past president of the Bloomington North Club and an active participant in our Rotary Toast throughout the years, gave a COVID vaccine to our district governor, Jessica Hain, on Saturday at the convention center. And Jody also had the privilege to vaccinate at least 2 other Rotarians in her work over the course of the last few weeks. So yay, more people are getting vaccinated and we're getting that much closer. So congratulations. And I hope everyone saw that in the paper. I have one volunteer announcement about Helping Hands. I've mentioned Helping Hands several times throughout the past year with it's through Civic Champs, and they offer the opportunity to sign up for help around the community, individuals that need deliveries, helping with the food pantries, etc. They take care of all the work. I have a volunteer opportunity tomorrow for myself that I took, and they text you when you have an available opportunity in your window, and then they take care of all the rest of the scheduling details. It could not be easier. I really encourage you, now that we're feeling a little bit safer, to take advantage of this opportunity. You can go to helpinghands.civicchamps.com. I'll drop it in the chat, or you can call a phone number that I'll also leave there, and you can get signed up. It's very easy. You just tell them what day of the week and what times you're available, and they'll text you or call you or email you with some opportunities. You simply say yes or no, and they send you on your way. So I really encourage it. It's a lot of fun. It's very safe, and it's a good way to start dipping your toe back into the volunteer pool here in Bloomington. With that being said, happy dollars. That's my happy dollar for today, is that I get the opportunity to help and join on to something in the community little by little. So anyone else want to share? Liz Feidel.
Yes, I'm happy to announce and will contribute happy dollars for my retirement on May 31st.
Congratulations.
What will you do then?
Oh, Charlotte.
Right. I'm going to contribute $5 happy dollars for the things that Liz will do when she retires.
I'm happy to say that I have a little bit of Pfizer inside me today. So I've become a Pfizer puppy, or whatever they call them.
Congratulations.
Join
I've
the
heard
club.
it called the Fauci ouchie.
Oh, how about the Pfizer Fizz?
No, don't accept that.
Leslie Green.
Hey, hello, everybody. It's good to see everybody. I also have Moderna, and Friday is my 2-week post-second shot, so I'm very excited about that. I'm even more excited that Stone Belt for the last 2 weeks is hosting a clinic. We were able to get signed on as a clinic, and we've been providing vaccines to some of the individuals we support. And so they also are getting protection.
Wonderful. Good. You're in a new place.
Anyone else want to share? I can't see everyone at once, so if you're raising your hand, you might want to speak up.
Go ahead.
Last call. Okay. Thank you for sharing. And without further ado, Liz Feidel, would you introduce our speaker for today?
I'd be happy to do that. I want to announce that Jen Pearl is president of the Bloomington Economic Development Corporation. I had the honor of serving on the search committee to help hire Jen, and it's been a delight to see her progress. She's been a part of the Bloomington regional community since 2007, with family, work, and educational ties across the region. She joined the BEDC in May of 2019, coming from the Indy Chamber, where she served as director of the international programs, overseeing implementation of the Metro Indianapolis Global Trade and Investment Strategy for the 9-county metro region. Prior, Jen was based in Beijing, China, as the senior consultant with North Head, a public affairs and strategic communications agency. She conducted policy analysis and public affairs campaigns for multinational clients doing business in Asia and trade across international markets. Jen has strong ties to Indiana, having managed global partnerships for 5 years at the Indiana University School of Public Health. She began her career at National Public Radio in Washington, D.C. Pearl is an alumni of IU, where she received her Master's of Public Affairs and Master of Arts in East Asian Studies and of Syracuse University. Please help me welcome Jen to our program today.
Thank you so much for the invitation, Liz, and hello to Rotary. We were fighting some technology gremlins a little earlier, so hopefully I'm going to set my screen up here. Before I do that, though, I just wanted to let you know that thank you to Michael. We will have some poll questions during this presentation. I'm not a fan of just talking at people, and we hope that this is something that everyone can participate in some fashion. So be on the lookout for those. Michael, do you have any technical instructions for the poll?
No, they'll just see them when they come up and they'll be able to click and answer them.
Great, fantastic. So at that, I will share my screen, and please, someone give me a verbal cue if you're not able to see this properly. Do I need to swap it out, Michael?
Yes.
Is that better?
There you go.
All right. So thank you so much for having me today. My name is Jennifer Pearl, and I am representing the Bloomington Economic Development Corporation. Before we dive in, I wanted to start with the definition of economic development. It might be something that you'd heard of before. Honestly, I didn't start in this field, and really only learned about economic development later on. What we do is work to sustainably increase prosperity and quality of life for communities. What we do is focus on creating a better economic future by enabling individuals, companies, and communities to innovate and responsibly produce and trade valuable goods and services. It is not growth for the sake of growth. That's a common misconception about our field. We are not chasing smokestacks or other things like that. The field itself has evolved a great deal over the last few decades, and you'll hear a bit more about how that operates today. A bit about the BEDC. So we were established in 1985. We're a nonprofit corporation, and we serve all of Monroe County. Our mission is to catalyze the retention, development, and attraction of quality jobs for the whole community. We focus specifically on traded sector employment, and traded sectors are those industries and companies that sell goods and services outside of our region, and they bring income into the region. That's a bit different than bricks and mortar and other local employers and local stores and others that circulate money inside of the community. So the idea is that you really need both for a healthy economy, income coming into the community, which is what we focus on, and then the local economy, which is often what you see chambers of commerce focus on. And we partner very regularly with our local chambers. Examples of traded sector employers might include Cook Group, Catalent, even Indiana University, because students come from really all over the world into our community. And education is actually one of Indiana's top exports because you have so many international students coming in previous to the pandemic. The work that the BEDC does includes a focus on economic development strategy, which I'll speak about a little later, business retention, expansion, and attraction. So that's helping our employers to grow their employment opportunities for the community. Support for entrepreneurship, which we do through our B-Start program, you can see on the sidebar. That is a pre-accelerator program to help local startups kind of get their footing under them. Networking and information sharing with members, but stakeholders also across the community, and support for BEDC members. This is a snapshot of our organization. We have close to 100 members, and I know a number of our member organizations have representatives that are also a part of Rotary, so just want to give a shout out to them. And you can see that our officers listed on the left here come all from the private sector, and our executive committee includes representation from the county, the city, and the town of Ellettsville. Our organization really sits at the intersection between the private and the public and the nonprofit sectors in order to advance prosperity for the community. So here's where we have the first poll question that we'd love everybody to weigh in on. Does economic stability relate to the following list of items? Neighborhood and physical environment, education, food, community and social context, and healthcare systems. So if you would say yes, no, or only some of these items relate. And we'll give you a few seconds. I almost feel like we should have Jeopardy music here. I'm sorry if somebody can sing that or. All right, it looks like the poll is closed, and the answer is yes, that all of these items do relate. So I'm going to explain a little bit of that on the next slide here. Let's see if it'll allow me to advance. Can everyone see that? Okay, so this relates actually to the pandemic, and some of you may be familiar with a concept called social determinants of health. This actually comes from the public health arena, and it talks about how the health of a community is strongly related to all of the factors that you see here in this graphic. So economic stability and neighborhood and physical environment and education and food and community and social context and the healthcare system are all interrelated with one another. We saw this play out over the past year with the pandemic, both in our community, across the state, and nationally, as well as globally, where people may have lost their jobs. This related to food security as well as housing, and ultimately health outcomes that you saw in the community. This brings us to the economic impact of the pandemic. What you see here is a chart that shows the unemployment benefits trend, starting actually from the 2008 financial crisis all the way up through January of this year. And if you look on the far right of the screen, you can see that unemployment claims and paid out benefits skyrocketed in the early days of the pandemic last spring in our community. This is for Monroe County. So they skyrocketed to Great Recession levels from 10 years ago. Fortunately, that has dropped since then, but you still have higher than usual unemployment claims that have persisted in the community. There's a couple notable things about this. This trend that you see here is only individuals who have applied for unemployment and are receiving benefits. This does not show people who've dropped out of the workforce. It also does not show maybe differences in how people have been impacted. So when we talk about unemployment rates and who's filing and receiving benefits, that's a really important distinction that we try to take a closer look at to figure out how people are connecting or not connecting to prosperity. This gives you a bit of a closer look. The bottom of this chart here, you can see the unemployment rate for Monroe County, as well as the state and United States as of December 2020. If you look on the far right, the lower right, it talks about last year's rate. So obviously the unemployment rates have gone up. But then if you look at the top of the chart here, you can see that our labor force actually contracted by 2.5%. We had between February of 2020 and December of 2020, 3,100 people that dropped out of the workforce. And that's particularly striking because we've also been hearing from our employers that they're having a difficult time finding staff right now. So this is something we've taken a closer look at. You also see how many were unemployed as of December of this year. 2,300 people in Monroe County is not a small amount. And that was an increase of 25% if you look at year-on-year change. Okay, so what industries were most impacted? On the left of the screen, you see all these colorful boxes which depict April of 2020. On the right side, you see January of 2021. On the left side, you can see that larger boxes indicate industries that had higher numbers of unemployment claims. So you had higher concentrations of unemployed in accommodations and food services, retail trade, manufacturing, administrative support. And then over the course of the year, going to January, you saw that shrank a bit, where you still have a lot of folks who have been out of employment in accommodations and food services, but you also have construction, educational services, admin support, etc. You do see a bit of a domino effect as different industries have been impacted at different times. You do also have a bit of seasonal variation that happens. So when we're trying to understand the economic impact of what's happened over the last year, we really try to dig deeper on the numbers to get more specific and figure out maybe where some dots aren't connecting and how we can be better serving those portions of the community that may need just more support in connecting to opportunities. We can actually get down to the census tract level in terms of how individuals have been impacted. The map on the left is just for reference. This is a Monroe County map. The other two maps show unemployment claims by census tract. Darker colors mean more individuals who have filed unemployment claims. So darker means more people who are filing for unemployment. In the middle here, you can see that unemployment claims were really up across most of the county, except for the census tracts that were just north of town. If you move to November of 2020, you can see that there were higher rates of unemployment in census tracts a little bit south, on the south side of town and sort of southwest of the community. And so this is another piece of the puzzle that we've been looking at, is how can we better reach those individuals who may need support. What about the forecast for this year? So the chart on the left indicates our annual growth rate in jobs. Obviously that bottomed out in 2020, but the Indiana Business Research Center has predicted a strong rebound this year. At the same time, you can see on the right, this is the annual growth rate for personal income for individuals, that there is a delayed effect. It was still pretty good in 2020, but you see a delayed impact in 2021, and then a slow recovery in 22 and 23 that's predicted. That's because, again, there's some things that lag in how people are impacted. So that's important to know in terms of what tax revenues look like, and even other things that we need to do in the community to move forward. Okay, so this brings us to our next poll question. What is the role of economic development in disaster response? Is it A, gathering data, B, convening partners in information sharing, C, stabilization and recovery, D, all of the above, or the last choice is none of the above, because disaster response is really related more to food, shelter, and medical care. As everybody gets their votes in. All right. So for those of you that said all of the above, that is actually correct. This is something that we were really digging into the last year. We have an international professional association that economic developers are a part of called the Indiana Economic Development Council. And as a part of our DNA, disaster response is actually written into the work that we do. So if there's natural disaster in a community, a human-made disaster, a pandemic, economic developers play a role in helping the community to gather data, convene partners, share information, and help stabilize the economy as the community is trying to get back on its feet. So I will talk a little bit about how we worked with others across the community to respond to the pandemic over the last year. So early in the days of the pandemic, we were talking to other organizations around the community where it was literally, today is the 9th, I think it was around the 13th in March last year. We were just talking to others in government, business, nonprofits, just trying to assess what was going on. And we set up twice weekly Zoom calls with partners from all of these different sectors, including the health sector and others, just to share information and understand the impact of what was happening. The Monroe County COVID Coalition developed out of that. We are still meeting monthly to share information on how all different parts of the community are reacting to the pandemic and ways that we can coordinate. And what you can see here in the graphic is MoCo Shoutout, which was a recent initiative that the coalition launched, which is, if you go to this website, which is www.kudoboard.com/boards/MoCo Shoutout, you can go on there and thank people who have gone above and beyond. It could be individuals, it could be organizations, just to provide recognition, because it's been an incredible year this past year, and so many people have dug in. So we hope that you'll consider providing some shout outs there. Another piece of the response that we participated in was the Bloomington Economic Stabilization and Recovery Working Group. This was convened by the city of Bloomington, and it included the city, the BEDC, the Chamber of Commerce, the CDFI Friendly Bloomington, members of the city and county councils, and the mill. And we were essentially tasked within 72 hours turning around a major report on how the local community and economy was being impacted by the pandemic and what we thought could be done about it. What grew out of that was a loan fund that provided low interest loans to 62 nonprofits and small businesses across the community to help them get over the hump of the early part of the pandemic. Parts of this working group also launched reopening resources for small businesses across the community, access to PPE. And then we've also been working on some long-term stabilization and what we call Thrive initiatives that we'll talk about a little bit later. The BEDC also convened the State of the Bloomington Regional Economy to give a snapshot of really the economic impact around the region and just what everyone was seeing. Another piece of our pandemic response included a major effort that the BEDC teamed up with the City of Bloomington for. We applied for CARES Act funding through the U.S. Economic Development Administration to launch a Trades District Technology Center. Something that the US EDA, the Economic Development Administration, was trying to work with communities to do is to recover in ways that they can be stronger for the future. That deals with economic resilience and other things that a community might need. Something that the pandemic really underscored for our community is how we need to diversify our employment base and do more to develop future-focused jobs. If you look at our history, we really, we moved from furniture production through the Showers Brothers Furniture Company to manufacturing in the 20th century, later on to the development of life sciences through Cook and Catalent and others, which are now, leading industries for us. But we're also looking at what may be coming next for the community. And we have a strong emerging industry cluster in tech. That's in part because of Indiana University, in part because of innovation happening around Crane. We also have about 40 to 50 local tech companies that specialize in things like software as service. Other specialties in our region include AI, machine learning, quantum computing, hypersonics, and other areas of tech. So what we did here was applied for CARES Act funding to construct a center in the Trades District in Bloomington that could be a place for tech companies to locate, but it would also be a programmatic hub with a nonprofit running it to provide programming and services to help those companies that are after the startup phase to grow, to connect to talent and resources and other assets around the community, and ultimately become strong traded sector members that could be selling goods and services outside of our region. We will find out more in the coming months whether we receive the grant, but we have found out that we are proceeding for more consideration. And something that we've also seen too is we have some estimates that it can lead to hundreds of jobs, both in tech and in indirect areas, as well as millions of dollars of other investment that it would attract. So we're very hopeful about what happens here. Next, what growth we saw and what successes in 2020. We're going to start with a poll question for this segment. When a community grows new jobs, do more jobs typically come from existing companies that are already in the community, or companies that relocate to the community, such as Amazon, or both equally? If anyone else has to vote, all right. So for all of you that said existing companies in the community, that is correct. And you saw that in everything that happened this past year. These are some of the highlights of the business retention, expansion, and attraction projects that the BEDC worked on this past year. We saw traded sector growth in our community in biopharma manufacturing. Obviously, you have seen that Catalent has hired well over 1,000 people this past year. They continue to grow and have hundreds of jobs that are open as they produce the COVID-19 vaccine. But we also have our other life sciences companies that have been growing as well. We have advanced manufacturing that has grown, as well as healthcare entities. And the BEDC supported projects that are tied to over 1,600 new jobs that have been committed to Bloomington for the next few years at an average wage of $22.88 per hour. This goes back to that strategy I mentioned earlier, focusing on traded sector jobs as a way to bring greater income into the community and higher wages. 90% of these new jobs, tied back to that poll that you just answered, 90% of those new jobs were coming from our existing employers in the community. And so finding ways to support their growth, whether it's through connections to workforce resources, finding space, finding land, connecting to local incentives that can help them to grow faster, all have really a knock-on effect for the community and a ripple effect that translates into tax revenues. It translates into diverse job opportunities for people in this market and help us really move forward. So where are we going from here? Because we obviously still have a number of challenges in the community and folks that are not fully connecting to opportunities. These are the two things that we're focusing on as an organization with other partners in 2021. First is to develop a comprehensive economic development strategy. And what that does is convene stakeholders from across the community, from government, from nonprofits, from the private sector, to take a look at some of our biggest economic development challenges and figure out how we can tackle them together, rowing in the same direction. We know what some of these challenges are. We know that we have a need for future-focused jobs, higher wages. We also know that we need to cultivate more places for people to have housing where they can afford to live in this community. There's other things like childcare and other things that may be a challenge to employers and employees alike. So through the strategy, which is something we had hoped to do last year, but got delayed due to the pandemic, we're going to be convening with partners, talking about how we could team up to tackle these challenges, and then immediately start implementing, setting out metrics, and then reporting back quarterly on how we're doing and what we may need to adjust. The second piece of major work we're going to work on this year is a business retention, expansion, and attraction plan. It'll tie to the strategy I just mentioned, as well as how we're using land, highest and best use of land, opportunities for traded sector job growth, supply chain resiliency, which we saw that was a challenge this last year when manufacturing and other suppliers were really hit by the shutdown with the pandemic, as well as workforce development. And at the end of the day, all of this ties back to opportunities for individuals in the community. How does this affect quality of life? How does this affect people's ability to, do well in this community, support family that's in this community, and really move forward towards the future? You're invited to join us. If there was something that you heard today that is relevant to an organization that you're working with, that you think they may want to connect to the strategy I mentioned, or you might have data or really optics on part of our community that could be somehow connecting to what we do, we welcome the chance to chat. This is my email that's here, and then Clark Greiner, who's our business development director, is also a part of our team. Before I close with our final poll, this is where I would like to make a confession, which is growing up, I actually was a very active member of Key Club, which is, I just saw Ashley's face just aghast. Key Club being under the umbrella of Kiwanis. And so it is always a delight to come in and chat with Rotary. So this is my final poll question to you. In a dance-off between Rotary and Kiwanis, what are your moves of choice? We have foxtrot, flamenco, breakdancing, square dancing, or however the spirit moves you in the moment. All right. We actually, square dancing square dancing's moving ahead. This is a very exciting poll here to see how people are coming down on this. It seems like this is a very spontaneous group. So however the spirit moves you, looks like that's what it is. I'm going to end there. And if anyone has questions, I'll be really happy to chat with you further.
Jen, we forgive you for your involvement with Kiwanis. We don't need to forgive you. We work very well together.
Thank you.
Okay, of course I have a question. Jennifer, I have a question about, the other day I was listening to a woman from Target give a speech at Women in IU, and she was talking about the involvement of Target people in their community. My question is, I don't think that the city and the county we have all sorts of issues on the table in this community, and I don't think we reach out much to the industries and to the manufacturers for their input into resolving these issues. Can you help us with that?
Yes, and actually that's precisely the idea behind the comprehensive economic development strategy. I appreciate your asking about that, because one of the ideas is that among the stakeholders that will be collecting to talk about these issues and to find strategies, we will have industry at the table. And so some of them might be able to say, here's what we see for job growth. They may also say, hey, we need people. We currently are aware of at least 600 to 700 open positions in our community. And so I think, to your point, I think that's really a part of the problem solving process, and we really need to be working across sectors to make it happen.
Then I have one more question. I worked for years with women from Middle Way House who didn't bring particular skills to the table, and we helped them develop them. But how are you dealing with people who are relatively unskilled but need the jobs?
That's a really great question. So and this is currently happening in different parts of the community. So you see entities like Work One, Goodwill Industries, and other programs where they're trying to help people to skill up. A part of our board includes places like Ivy Tech. We're tied to both school districts.
Yeah.
But I think an unrealized opportunity and something that we still need to do is figure out how we can more effectively work as an ecosystem on a very regular basis. Right now, it seems like if people get into those programs, they're able to get support, but there might not be as much awareness of the support that's there. and then the connections with local industry.
Right.
There are some companies like Cook Group, for example, that has
Cook
been
Group,
very proactive in this arena.
Yeah,
But there's others that maybe haven't even known about the resources that are there.
yeah.
And then on the nonprofit side, I appreciate you bringing up Middle Way House. If anyone on Rotary here is aware of nonprofits that could really connect to these efforts, that should be a part of this conversation in some way, please don't hesitate to reach out, because we would love to figure out how it can all fit together in the bigger picture so that we can be tackling these things together.
I'm going to call you.
Thank you. I look forward to it.
Jennifer, I have a question. In how you defined economic activity in Bloomington, there were a number of different sectors. The one sector that I was missing was the arts and the arts sector, the performing arts sector, as well as the arts in general, which obviously is a huge driver of the economy, but also of quality of life and quality of place. So how does the BEDC think about the arts in terms of economic development?
Thank you for that question. So this is not in our organization, but in the city of Bloomington, under the economic development department, they actually have someone who works on arts. And in the comprehensive economic development strategy, we've been listing out stakeholders, and the art segment of the community is one of the stakeholder groups that we were brainstorming about. It's really interesting you bring this up because we've seen some other communities that have leveraged that for community advancement. So I think about Indianapolis, they have a Music Cities initiative that they launched. You see other communities that do that as well. And obviously it's a major part of quality of place. I know that our family, during regular times, we loved going to shows and galleries and things like that. And it absolutely fits within quality of place, but then that's also employment for individuals as well. While we haven't worked directly with that employment, I think it fits within quality of place and needs to fit within that larger strategy. So I think I appreciate your mentioning that.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Jennifer, as more and more consumers shop online and forsake bricks and mortar stores, and with the loss of Macy's here to our Simon Mall, what is the BEDC's position on that whole issue?
Yeah, well, we don't work directly with that segment of the economy. Our partners do. And so the Economic Stabilization and Recovery Working Group that I mentioned, where we have the chambers and the city, and we collaborate with others like Visit Bloomington and ISBDC. Some of our partners are focusing more on how to support that segment of the local segment of our economy, whereas we're focused more on the traded clusters. Something that we have been trying to do is share information about some of those campaigns to support local business. So I know around the holidays, there were a few campaigns that went out. We've also been talking about what the pivot towards summer looks like to continue to support those bricks and mortar places. Also that small business loan program that I mentioned earlier that we helped to conceive of was another piece of the puzzle. So for us, it's been more in a supportive role to our partners who are focusing on that segment of the economy. But obviously it's something we're both concerned about, and we've been trying to share as much information as we can to spread the word about how folks can support those local businesses.
Jennifer, what about sole proprietor businesses, self-employed folks? Is there a place for them in your organization, or are there other organizations that are helping them?
Yeah, so for sole proprietors, though, depending on your focus, there might be different partners that you're engaged with. Honestly, if you'd ever want to chat about, if anyone knows about a sole proprietorship that's interested in getting involved in the work that we're doing, now that you've seen a snapshot of what we do, we would always be very happy to chat with anyone who's interested in teaming up in some way or becoming a member or working with us in some way. Depending on the type of support that you're looking for, We might also point you to different partners that we have in the community, depending on what your needs are, or perhaps what industry that you're working in.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Incidentally, this is a great group. This is probably more questions than I've gotten at most presentations.
So Jen, how do businesses that you do work with, how do they become BEDC members, and do you have a capacity to have more, or how does all that work?
Liz, that's an amazing question. Thank you. Yes, we are always welcoming members. And we have 2 levels of members currently. So one is sponsor members that actually become a member of our board. And you get, there's a list of benefits that come with that. You're a voting board member. You're invited to the table when we're talking about different economic development initiatives. And then we have general members that join us for 4 meetings a year. And sort of have a lower level of benefits. And both we regularly share information with about economic development trends, business opportunities out in the community, what's happening in the economy, best practices that are out there, connections with resources, and just also a seat at the table as we've been really trying to convene and provide feedback on different initiatives this past year. So for example, when the city was launching their Recover Forward program, we convened focus groups among our members to take a look at that and provide feedback. You know, we try to connect members and make sure they're in the know about other economic development initiatives. And then certainly the other things that I talked about. If anyone is interested, and thank you, Michael, for putting my email in the chat. Please reach out to me. I'd be happy to chat about you just to see if there's a fit, or even some other sort of connection with any organizations that you're working with as well. As I mentioned, we really sit at this intersection between the private sector, which is the majority of our members, but then also we do have members from local government as well as nonprofits. Thank you, Liz.
Jennifer, thanks so much. One question, what is the relationship of the BEDC to the Indiana Economic Development Corporation? And do you have any comment on the recent resignation of the chairman of the IEDC?
That's a really great question. So the IEDC, for anyone who's not familiar, is a state level entity which drives business retention, expansion, and attraction for the entire state of Indiana. The Secretary of Commerce, who's appointed by the governor, heads up that agency. We work with them on a very regular basis where they provide leads for business attraction into the community. So they may say, okay, we have company A in this industry. They are looking for land that will enable them to grow you know, their business there that would hire X number of people. And so we have a regular stream of projects that come in from them that we evaluate. And if we have land or it's a good fit for our community, then we'll submit information for our community so we can compete for those. One of the things that we've been evaluating is there have been a lot of opportunities that have been great for other parts of Indiana, such as food processing, that maybe are not within the strategic focus for our community, which is things like life sciences and tech. We also don't have so much available land. So we're trying to really match up this, the capabilities of our community, as well as what will provide the best opportunities for the future. So one, we've been in some conversations with them about that. I don't have a lot of information right now about that change. If anybody knows more, you know, love to know. But I know they do have an interim individual in that role, Jim Staten, who is kind of the bridge in the meantime, who I'm acquainted with. And then we'll wait to see. But Governor Holcomb actually spoke at the BEDC's recent annual meeting in February. And it was very encouraging because what you're hearing come out from strategy at the state level, for example, they have combined the IEDC and their efforts on workforce development, which is great because you can, get jobs all day long until you're blue in the face. But if you don't have, if it's not matched up with people who can fill those jobs, then you're kind of missing the mark. And so they're becoming more strategic in that way. They're also talking about a second round of regional cities, which would be funding for regions to put forward, strategies for working together. And that's something that we're planning on doing anyways through our strategy, because we know that Monroe County is not an island. We have probably 16,000 people prior to the pandemic who travel in for work. We're an employment hub, but then we have another couple thousand that travel out for work as well. And as soon as I-69 opens up, that even provides more opportunities. We know that Owen County is where many people have found places to live because they haven't been able to find a place to live in Monroe County. Several thousand of Cranes employees live in this community. So we've been really trying to look at how we can work more regionally, which, tying back to your question at the state level, has been something they've been talking at the state level as well. So that was really exciting to hear about, just that the strategies are sort of paralleling and there should be a lot of opportunity to work together. Thank you.
Can you give us an idea maybe how many inquiries you get a year and what inhibits the fruition of those coming to completion?
Yeah, so it's been approximately, I want to say around 40 per year, maybe that came in through the IEDC. We do get some directly from local businesses, locally based employers. The biggest challenges are often available land or available structures where we just haven't had properly zoned land or available structures. And in some cases you're like, okay, well, we missed on that one, but maybe it's not a fit for our local industries. But we've had a couple, like in research and development for life sciences, for example, where it would have been a perfect fit. And we just didn't have a space that we could offer them. And so that's been a major challenge there. The other thing is, we're always looking for ways that we can make it as smooth a process as possible in case something has to be rezoned, or just other resources that, might be needed as well.
I have in the country nationally, I understand that it is women primarily who have left the workforce and who have lost opportunities. Is that true here? And what can we do about that?
Yeah, so I love that question because we've been talking with the Indiana Business Research Center about that.
Yeah.
They've been a wonderful resource for data. I don't have those statistics for Monroe County. We haven't been able to get our hands on them yet. We have seen that nationally. That's true. Anecdotally, we've heard people have dropped out. And then that's a question of, okay, so what are the other, what's missing? What are the hurdles? Is it childcare? Is it people aren't getting the wages they need? Is it they aren't aware of resources that are available to them? And so those are questions we've been asking. Also add to your question, and we saw that individuals making less than $27,000 a year were disproportionately impacted by unemployment in Indiana, where they saw like a 17% jump in unemployment compared to individuals making over $60,000 a year, where it was only like maybe a jump of 1 to 2% in unemployment. And so you saw a disproportionate impact on lower wage workers as well. Some of that has since rebounded as people have, gotten back into work as things have opened up. But obviously this is a piece of the puzzle that we need to take a deeper look at.
50 years ago, we had created a commission on the status of women whose purpose was to gather data about the status of women, and that's just never happened. I think it's never been available, and we thought it needed to be done here somehow, and I suggest that we think about how we can do that.
Well, and thank you for that, because I think, we actually have a few different commissions on the status of different parts of the community.
Yes.
And that's a great reminder that we should be better connecting with these groups who may have better optics on how that part of the community is being impacted and how we can better connect the dots.
You might get a volunteer for a group there.
Thank you. And anyone, feel free to email me if anyone's got tips on that too.
Jennifer, I'd be curious, IU is working toward increasing the minimum wage toward $15. How is that going to affect economic development locally?
Can we pause for a moment on that, answering that question so that we can officially close our program and then jump back after if you have a few minutes to stay?
I do.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Owen, we'll jump right back into your question, but I want to make sure if other people need to get out of here, they can. So thanks for presenting today, Jen. We are honored to donate a portion of our quarterly speaker recognition to Beacon in your honor. And we so appreciate you. Sally, would you tell us about next week's program?
Delighted. Next week on Zoom, we will have another community leader speaking. We'll hear from Brad Kimmel, who is the newly appointed Executive Director of IU Radio and Television Services. It's WTIU and WFIU.
Thanks. All right, let's have the four-way test graphics. We can say this together to close out our meeting. Of the things we think, say, do. First is it the truth?
True.
Second, is it
Fair
fair
to all
to all
concerned?
concerned? Third,
Will it build goodwill
will
and better
friendships?
friendships?
Fourth,
Will it be beneficial to all concerned? And fifth, is it fun?
I got called Rick, it's his birthday.
thank you so much. Okay, let's pick